Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Agriculture, SOA, Master of Science in Food Safety and Quality Management, MSCFSQM, MVP 009 Research Methodology, Block-1 Science and Scientific Approach, Unit-1 Selection of Research Problem, 1.0 Objectives. After going through this, you will be in a position to explain the need for scientific methodology in extension research, identify the dimensions to select suitable research problem, formulate the problem statement and objectives of research study. 1.1 Introduction. Science and common sense differ in several ways. A scientist develops theories in a systematic way, while a common man develops theory in a loose way. A scientist tests his theory in a scientific manner while a common in the street also tests his theory, but in an unscientific manner. In this unit you will be introduced to the characteristics of scientific approach as a method to know about the world in which we live. The first step in scientific inquiry is formulation of a problem. Some scientists feel that formulation of a problem is more essential than its solution. You may be aware of the problem which was expressed through the question "Why an apple fruit falls down?" Came of the basic skills to the learned by every researched is how to formulate a reasonable problem. This unit will help you to sharpen your skills in formulation of problems. 1.2 Science and characteristics of scientific knowledge. Science, originated from the Latin word scientia, which means knowledge, is a system of acquiring knowledge based on the scientific method, as well as the organized body of knowledge gained through such research. Let us have a look into two different views about science, the static view and the dynamic view. In static view, science is an activity that contributes systematic information to the world. The role of the scientist is to discover new things and add them to the already existing body of knowledge. But in dynamic view, science is an activity what the scientist do. And here the subject matter always changes and are the process of discovery. Just think of the methods of knowing. You will come across with subjective as well as objective methods. The major subjective methods are tenacity, authority and a priori methods. In the method of tenacity, we hold firmly to set a truth as our ancestors hold it firmly. Tenacity is the tendency to continue to believe a proposition through the habit of inertia. We accept a proposition as true simply because we have always believed it to be true. In the method of authority, we collect knowledge from authorities like Vedas, Upanishads or findings of renowned scientists like Dr. A.P. J. Abdul Kalam, Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, etc. Instead of holding doggedly to one's beliefs, their confirmation is sought from some expert in the area concerned. A priori is a method of intuition, i.e., a sense of second thought. We attach credibility to this knowledge because of rationality or logical reasoning. This method, intuition, relies upon its appeal to reason. Propositions which agree with reason are considered to be correct. They are self-evident. Many times these propositions contradict one another. In such instances there is no basis for asserting that one is any more valid than the other. So this method also is an inappropriate way of knowing about facts, but a very important method of knowing is scientific method, and its major peculiarity is that it is an objective method. This is a method where R is put into outside world in such a way that our subjective belief is tested against the objective reality. This is called empirical testing. The scientific approach of knowing is objective, i.e. impersonal, unbiased and unprejudicial. The mature, the wood research refers to exploration or searching something which is unknown. Webster's dictionary specifies research as a careful critical inquiry or examination in seeking facts or principles, diligent investigations in order to ascertain something. According to Kevlingen, 1964, scientific research is systematic, controlled, empirical and critical investigations of hypothetical propositions about the presumed relations among natural phenomena. After understanding the meaning of research, let us study the characteristics of scientific research. 1.2.1 Characteristics of scientific research. Research is factual. Research is always factual in nature. That means it is always based on the observable evidence. We can observe objectively or we can empirically prove it. I.e. We can convince people. Research is analytical. Research is always analytical in nature. We find the reasons by analyzing the situations by variables, causes and results. Research is reliable. Research is reliable or reproducible, i.e. we can reproduce or replicate the results. Research has objectivity. Research is always objective. It is free from personal bias and prejudice. Research is verifiable. Verifiability is a major characteristic of research. Anyone can verify the research results. Research is predictable. We can predict the results obtained from different trials for future. Research has generality. The findings obtained by research should be of universal or general. 1.3 Need for scientific methodology. Scientific problem solving involves two basic types of reasoning, generally called induction and deduction. Induction involves gathering together a collection of bits of data, observations, experimental results, whatever kinds of information are available and formulating a generalization which reasonably explains all of them. In general, it is from particular to general. This is analogous to the formation of a hypothesis. You make a set of observations, then hypothesize an explanation which accounts for all of the observations. You can see why forming a hypothesis is sometimes described as forming an educated guess. It is a guess in the sense that you are devising an explanation, but it is educated because 1. It must be reasonable, i.e., sensible, and 2. It either has to be consistent with what we already think we know, or it has to include a very good justification for deciding that what we think we know is wrong. This is a vital kind of self-policing. One of the most significant strengths of scientific knowledge is the degree to which it is self-correcting. And this is one part of that. No matter how good an idea is, if it violates the centuries' worth of hard-won knowledge have accumulated, there must be extremely good reason, based on a lot of evidence, to accept the new idea and throw out all of the old ones. In general, induction is the generalization based on logical reasoning from particular case to general, i.e. It is the process by which scientist forms a theory and explains the observed fact. Or we proceed from laws to facts. Now let us see what deduction is. Deduction begins with a generalization. Predictions are made based on the generalization, and those predictions are challenged. In general, it is from general to particular. This, in essence, is the testing part of science. One cannot say enough about how important this aspect of science is. Testability is a requirement for any useful scientific concept. But, of course, there are many different kinds of ways to test predictions. Some require laboratories and lots of expensive equipment, but many don't. History scientists have demonstrated immense creativity in devising ingenious ways to challenge their predictions. Deduction is formed from the general antecedently known facts to the particular instance, i.e. we derive observable facts from the general theories. Or we proceed from facts to laws. Scientific research is an investigation using the scientific method to discover the answer to a scientific problem. Before starting your project, you need to understand the scientific method. The scientific method is the tool that scientists use to find the answers to questions. It is the process of thinking through the possible solutions to a problem and testing each possibility to find the best solution. The scientific method involves the following steps: identifying the problem, stating a hypothesis, conducting project experimentation, and reaching a conclusion. 1.4 Identification of research problem. You know that the selection of a research topic is very important job for a researcher. The range of potential topics for social research is as broad as the range of social behavior itself. Keep it in mind, every problem may not be researchable, and therefore, if you as the researcher are not able to select the problem properly, your efforts may not yield the desired results, and in some cases it may lead to frustration and desperateness. The selection of a problem may appear to be simple, but when you envisage the operational difficulties of putting a design into effective research, you may find that the selection of problem is very complex phenomenon which warrants several considerations. Kurlinger, 1964, defined problem as an interrogative statement that asks what relation exists between two or more variables. Merton distinguished the following three distinctive components in formulation of problem 1. Originating question, what we want to know. 2. The rationale, whatever it is, theoretical, practical, i.e., whether it is of any practical use. 3. Satisfying the rationale, i.e., specifying the questions and possible answers to the question. We have to judge the value of a problem by considering these three components, whether it contributes to knowledge, practical value, or duplicates the already existing knowledge. If the research is only to fulfill some requirements for obtaining a degree, the problem may be more specific and limited in scope and may offer itself for completion within a specified time. If the research is of academic interest, time should not be a binding factor. Many a times, the entire lifetime of a researcher goes towards exploring something new through his research efforts. He does not want any research degree but only does the research with the sole objective of enriching his personal knowledge as well as that to the general academic world. But at doctoral level, you have to take care that your problem should aim at masterly application of advanced research methods and seek to make significant contribution to advance the existing knowledge. It is your perception or recognition of a problem that motivates research. A problem exists when we do not have enough information to answer a question. This may happen 1. When there is a noticeable gap in the results of investigations, those questions which have remained unanswered by earlier investigations may make us aware of the problem. Data collection with a view to fill this gap is thus indicated. 2. When the results of several inquiries disagree. 3. When a fact exists in the form of a bit of unexplained information. For example, cost of production of paddy crop goes on increasing, or the number of suicide cases of farmers due to acute poverty goes up without sufficient explanation of such developments. 4. When there is desire for innovation. E.g., a manufacturer thinks of conducting research in new methods of production, packing or sale, even when there is no problem existing in the present system, but he simply wants to search out something new and better to create a difference. As I already emphasized, the problem for research should ordinarily be expressed in an interrogative form. E.g., what are the effects on workers' performance of different types of incentives? Do managers' comments cause improvement in workers' performance? Does anxiety affect achievement? Does the color of the variety affects its adoption level? The goal of research in all these cases would be to seek answers to these questions, not only is the selection of the problem, but its statement also is equally important. If the problem is not carefully and scientifically stated, it may lead to confusion regarding the specific interest for which the research investigation has been undertaken. The major sources from where you can identify research problems are 1. Theory of one's own interest, 2. Daily problems, 3. Technological changes, 4. Unexplored areas, 5. Discussion with superiors and experts, 6. Previous studies. 1.4.1 Criteria of a research problem. The problem expressed in the interrogative form when being converted into a statement form becomes the problem statement. Such problem identified for research must satisfy the following criteria. Let's see those criteria. 1. It should be original. The purpose of research is to fill the gaps in existing knowledge, to discover new facts and not to repeat the already known facts. Therefore, a preliminary survey of existing literature in the proposed area of research should be carried out to find out the possibility of making original contribution. 2. It should be neither very general nor very specific. If the problem is very general, it is usually too vague to be tested. On the other hand, if the problem is very specific, it is usually too narrow to be important or consequential. Too great specificity is perhaps a worse danger than too great generality. At any rate, some kind of compromise must be made between generality and specificity. 3. It should be solvable. No problem, however significant, is a good choice if it is unsolvable. Generally, a problem may be unsolvable due to two reasons. Firstly, it may concern some supernatural or amorphous phenomena. For egg, the problems such as how does mind works or who created this world, etc., are unsolvable because the domain to which these problems belong is so amorphous that it is impossible to specify what the relevant observations would be. This impossibility of obtaining relevant data renders the problem unsolvable. Secondly, it cannot be operationally defined. An operational definition of a problem specifies the activities or operations the researcher must perform in order to measure it. It indicates that a certain phenomenon exists and does so by specifying precisely how the phenomenon is specified. That phenomenon is said to be operationally defined. Others can then reproduce the phenomenon by repeating the method. It should be noted that some phenomenon can be easily measured, but some are difficult to measure. Thus, to measure sex or social class is easy, but to measure creativity, anxiety, organizational effectiveness, etc. is difficult. Further, the same phenomena may be measured in different ways by different researchers according to their purpose of inquiry. For egg, a psychologist may measure creativity in a way different from the way it is measured by an artist. 4. It should be feasible. The feasibility of carrying out research on the identified problem should be checked against the major considerations like study design, access to organization and respondents, sample to be studied, source of data, method of data collection, type of variables, selection of scales of measurement, statistics, distribution of variables, treatment of data, time required for study and funds required and its availability. Anyway, we will come across with the intricacies of these dimensions subsequently. Let us see how the research problem statement can be made, which is an integral part of research. 1.5 Statement of the problem and objectives. Many of you may think that having a particular topic as with an essay or research paper is the same as writing a thesis. However, the thesis of your writing is much more definite than the general subject. Let us see what a problem statement is. A problem statement is a specific declaration that summarizes the point of view you will express in your research. It is the basic stand you take the opinion you express, and the point you make about your narrowed subject. It's your controlling idea, tying together and giving direction to all other elements in your paper. Your primary purpose is to persuade the reader that your research report thesis is a valid one. 1.5.1 What is a good problem statement? 1. A problem statement is specific. If your ideas are vague, there is more chance that your research proposal will be confusing. Although general terms can be narrowed and defined elsewhere in the research report, a good thesis supplies a specific subject and a clear direction for your paper. The specific facts, details, and examples that you use will help to clarify the idea that you are trying to express. Example: poor deregulation is good for the telecommunications industry. Better deregulation is not only welcomed by consumers as a way to lower prices, but it also serves as a catalyst for innovation. 2. A problem statement is restrictive. A good problem statement deals with restricted, bite-sized issues that would otherwise require a lifetime of writing. Just as you need to narrow the subject of a thesis statement, so you will need to narrow the assertion about the subject. When you restrict the scope of your assertions in the thesis, your writing will be more focused. The length of your paper will determine how restricted your thesis will be. Example: poor. There are many advantages to deregulating local telephone service. Better. Deregulating local telephone service has political, social, and economic advantages. 3. Problem statement is unified and it expresses one major idea about a specific subject. A good research report may sometimes include a secondary idea only if it is strictly subordinated to the major one. It is wise to write your thesis before you begin an outline and definitely before you begin writing your paper. Example: poor universal access to affordable telephone service is not a realistic objective despite the introduction of alternative technologies. Better. While universal access to affordable telephone service remains unlikely, penetration rates have skyrocketed due to the introduction of wireless technologies. 4. A problem statement is the standard for your research report. Where you place a thesis statement depends on your goals, your audience, the purpose of your essay or research paper, and how you intend to organize it. The most common position for the thesis statement is in the opening paragraph, but other locations in the paper can work and the thesis may even be implied. However, just remember to write a thesis statement as one of the first steps towards completion of your paper. It should focus the paper as well as be restrictive and specific enough to give the instructor a clear idea of the subject and direction of your paper. A problem statement is not a promise or statement of purpose. It is not topic or subject by itself. It is also not a question. Now a few words added to title. After understanding the problem statement, let us understand how to frame research objectives. 1.5.2 Research objectives. The objectives of a research project summarize what is to be achieved by the study. Objectives should be closely related to the statement of the problem. For example, if the problem identified is low utilization of child welfare clinics, the general objective of the study could be to identify the reasons for this low utilization. In order to find solutions, the general objective of a study states what researchers expect to achieve by the study in general terms. It is possible and advisable to break down a general objective into smaller, logically connected parts. These are normally referred to as specific objectives. Specific objectives should systematically address the various aspects of the problem as defined under statement of the problem and the key factors that are assumed to influence or cause the problem. They should specify what you will do in your study, where and for what purpose. While writing research objectives, you have to focus attention on all requisites already emphasized on the selection of problem and objectives should be a statement that is written in terms of specific measurable time-based and verifiable outcomes. Objectives are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic and time-based. In brief, your research objectives should indicate the following aspects: primary purpose of the research, sets scope for what will not be addressed, limit to 1 or 2 for your project, write as statement beginning with action verbs such as describe, determine, investigate, identify, assess, etc. Example: describe demographic and behavioral characteristics of cotton farmers who adopted latest innovations in pest control. Then, frame research questions using the following steps. Research questions are to be frames as follows. Turn broad research objectives into more specific questions that need to be answered. Put research question in question form. Example: who, what, when, where, why, how. Prioritize your list: extremely, moderately, less important. Include at least one compare groups question. Example: men versus women, light users versus heavy users. How do they compare on some characteristic of interest? The characteristics of a good research question are as follows. 1. Relevant, clearly relates to the research objectives. Specific, clearly states who, what, where, when, etc. Measurable, suggests measurement scale. Example: to what extent, how, satisfied, how often, what percentage, etc. 1.6 Let us sum up. We learned the importance of research and the need of approaching research in a scientific way. Science is a system of acquiring knowledge based on the scientific method, as well as the organized body of knowledge gained through research. The static view of science says that it is an activity that contributes systematic information to the world. In dynamic view, science is an activity, what the scientists do, and here the subject matter always changes and are the process of discovery. Scientific research is systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigations of hypothetical propositions about the presumed relations among natural phenomena. We learned the characteristics of scientific research and need of a scientific methodology while carrying out research. Then we came across with the importance of identification of research problem as an integral component of the job of a researcher. The major criteria of research problem emphasize that it should be original, not very specific or very general, solvable and feasible with the available resources. We also learned about the problem statement as a specific declaration that summarizes the point of view we will express in our research and the criteria of problem statement followed by objectives of research and how the research objectives and research questions are to be formulated. These basic steps are inevitable as the preliminary phase of agricultural extension research. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with next chapter.